But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. We choose to go to the moon.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Super Happy Dragon Lucky. Here, I'll get my camera on. Sorry, I was off. This is the 132nd episode. Yeah, I shaved the beard off. I was holding it until the end just to get some reaction. Today, our hosts are Greg from Rivet. We might see Sean. We might see Lisa. We aren't certain yet. If they show up, they'll just pop in. And I want to introduce Jonathan Cagle, Descent 5JC on Twitter, doing a lot of election research from Topic Today. Very, very powerful stuff. So welcome, Jonathan, to the show. And I'm Joe, founder architect of Dragon Chain and the master of ceremonies for the show today. So first, a quick update on last week's show, World Blockchain Roundtable. The layer ownership token lot distribution from last week. Every host from last week will receive 888 lot. Every topic contributor, 333 lot. Last week's theme was nominated by Jacob Wayne, who will receive 333 lots. So these ownership tokens come with perpetual passive income. They come with free edits and most importantly, governance votes in the World Blockchain Roundtable, the DAO. So the do note, go if you can, if you're on Den, go to the WBRT DAO, click on the governance tab with the little mallet on the side, and please vote on theme selection for December. If you have not yet voted, have to vote by Sunday. And we're going to essentially pick out all of the shows for next month. I think in the lead right now is the blockchain biggest winner and loser in 2023. What's second here? Looks like Santa's Naughty and Nice List 2023. These are good for December, right? And then a deep dive, how bridging between blockchain works, right? That'll be very interesting. Very technical, maybe, but maybe we'll get into what it could be used for. Importantly, and then I think in fourth place currently, I believe, is Grand Theft Auto 6. And I don't know how that particularly fit in with the blockchain stuff, but we can definitely do some blockchain related stuff with Grand Theft Auto if that wins.
It's kind of a meme right now, isn't it?
Yeah. So anyway, get in there and vote. This is the most fun, or one of the most fun parts of having having tokens of ownership on the show, is that you get to decide stuff like this. I'd like to also see some people posting some ideas to change the format or something. We should maybe I have to come on, but I can't have my mic on for the whole show. Everything has to be some gesticulation or something. So anyway, so that's everything. So theme of the week, of course, is using blockchain to ensure election integrity. This was nominated by I Am, a dear member of the show, and somebody who always has good questions in there. So Thank you for nominating that.
Topic proposer.
Yes, tons of energy, right? Really good stuff. So this is particularly dear to my heart because of what has happened in the recent past and before that as well, all over the place. Who knows how long a lot of this has been going on.
I'm with you, man. This is a great topic. This is one I've been interested in for long before it became controversial.
Yeah, and that's why I have to tell everybody that I should have been doing my job and getting a hold of Jonathan far before today. But I basically pinged him after the Super Happy Dragon Lucky show, like 30 minutes before this show, and he was still able to come because he's amazing. He's and if you go. Maybe we can post into the comments. I'm trying to think. Oh, into the description, we can get a link to his Twitter because people should go back and look at the past. What do you think? Past couple of months, Jonathan, that you've been putting out a lot of info. Maybe longer.
Yeah, I mean, I really started focusing on a lot of the stuff I'm currently doing back in late October of last year. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, the last couple of months have really been rapid fire.
Things have been blown up. I'm amazed at the number of things on the list of to watch for developments. Most of us have lost hope on a lot of these things. It's amazing that the information gets to always come out, right? So
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
go find that link in the description and go check out his feed because there's a lot of stuff you need to know, especially as we come into next year before the real craziness starts. A lot of what you need to know about what happened back then and maybe speculate on what in the world is going to happen this time. So anyway, we go. You guys okay to go straight to questions?
Oh yeah. By the way, Jonathan, you have a follow from Design Heretic on X. That is me.
Heck yeah.
Follow back, man.
I've been meaning to block that guy for a long time.
He's a dick, isn't he?
Right on. So from Dayrox, question: how do you imagine election day on the blockchain? Will people vote from their own homes, or will there be voting stations? What about older people, grandma, and those who are not familiar with technology? What will be the participation rate? Who wants to start? Let's start with Greg. Go straight down.
Well, I'm going to be a little bit of a weirdo on this one, and I don't know if we can really ever properly dispense with paper, even though we have blockchain. I think blockchains are going to be at the election sites. I think that's how we're going to keep the records. I think that's the way you do it in a way that doesn't introduce the identity problems and the potential dead stick voter problem, right? The way that you identify citizens, like you have to have a polling place still. But I think that blockchain can play a role in terms of validating the site. And that's how I see it working. I don't think it'll feel that much different for regular folks, other than the results will be easy to tabulate and hard to contest.
Very good, very good. And let's for every, I'm going to add a part to this that you can answer, and then Jonathan. What is the I don't know how you wanted to specify this. However, it makes sense to specify it. Maybe the percentage likelihood of some amount of blockchain voting being prevalent in 2028, and then maybe 4 years after that, right? So maybe for the next two elections, what would you bet for the amount of blockchain voting? It doesn't have to be technically accurate, just a number, like 20%. I think 20% of or maybe 1% of all elections in 4 years will be on chain, something like that, right? What do you think?
I could see I see a lot of localities going blockchain in 4 years. I think that's where it's going to start. And so I would say, anywhere between 5 and 10%.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay, Jonathan. So your answer. What do you think?
Well, I certainly don't want to disappoint any of your loyal followers or listeners to the show because, with blockchain and really with any platform or any protocol that you're going to develop, it's only as honest and as reliable as the developers. And we've seen that with Ethereum, especially recently. And I know that's probably the main reason why you asked me on the show today, is because of all the hijinks we've seen on the Ethereum blockchain, and who Vitalik is tied to, and how it ties into to our elections. And for your crypto, subscribers and fans of Dragon Chain, that don't know, in my past life, before I got into all this racketeering and corruption and election integrity, I was a cryptocurrency hedge fund manager with a firm based out of Indianapolis and Boston. And so a lot of what I did was mitigating risk. And we learned that whether it's Ethereum, Avalanche, Binance, Bitcoin, Cardano, Chainlink, what have you, blockchains are going to be as reliable as the system or as the developer that is involved with designing it. And for 2028, I hope that blockchain is still another election cycle away from mass adoption in the voting system, because I think that for us to save America and save constitutional liberties and unbank ourselves as a people, we really can only do paper ballots on election day for 2024 and 2028. But I also agree with Greg. Municipalities, local governments, I think that'll be the initial rollout. Anything that's designed to be used in this election cycle or in 26 or 28, I think will most likely be developed by people who are not ideologically in line with us, not on our side. And so I'd rather not have it than have the tech that I support in the wrong hands, if that makes sense.
Does make sense. Yeah,
Dude,
no, that's just good points. Good points. So I'm going to see if I can share the screen here. We put something out, and I'm open to feedback on this too. To see if you knew about this, and if you knew this was possible, essentially, and if that changes your view of anything. That here, wait, sorry, do you have it available? Waiting for it to pop. I'll just, so essentially, it is an entire conception of platform that, and we laid this out. See here, what year was it? We laid this out in 2020, right? Because we knew what either had happened, and we had already kind of looked at, and we've been working, trying to get some level of exposure info out there. Again, like as you guys mentioned, for the localities primarily, we'd expect even a state election, right, to adopt something that early. But the thing that's interesting about it is kind of the structure of what's possible. And I'm just saying there are several ways to integrate existing systems. If they have voting booth kiosks, if they have a legal requirement to retain paper, right? All of these things can be met. I mean, that's why I built Dragon Chain. The real world is messy. The real world is always different than you think, and it's always dictated by political figures. Usually dark political figures that you don't even know who they are, right? And you just never know. It's like, why does he want that? He wouldn't want that. But it's like, oh, somebody else wants it.
Power is often
pictures.
best
They
exercised.
have pictures. Yeah. So anyway,
the knowledge of anyone else who the powerful are. Like
yes. So the thing that's interesting about it, and I had a post to somebody who disagrees with me politically, who's in our community once, saying I would never trust you guys to develop an election system, right? And it's like, well, that's the whole point. You shouldn't ever need to trust me. You should be able, and so those are the two things. Obviously, anonymity, right? Secret ballot required. Totally doable with decentralized identity, because I can prove criteria that have been signed by some authority that we all trust. Let's say it's the driver's license bureau in your state or whatever, right? It's like, okay, yeah, it could be corrupted, but generally you have to trust something. And they can say that this person is 18 and they are a resident of this district, so they are eligible to vote, right? That type of thing, right? Nobody, though, would know who that vote when I make that vote on chain is. But the proof side is crazy because, like, say, when I lived in Washington State, you essentially had a code that you could scan, right? So you'd put your paper ballot in along with all of the boxes of other people putting ballots in. And you could go home, you take this little strip of paper and you could scan it. And what does that strip tell you? That strip tells you your vote was counted. I'm like, oh, really? That doesn't tell me a damn thing. It doesn't tell me that you counted it the way I cast it, right? So that's one of the things that you should be able to go in and prove that your vote was actually cast or counted the way you cast it, right? And you could look at your own vote and know that's my vote. Yes, that's the way I voted. I'm good. The other side of it is anybody else should be able to see everybody's votes without the ability to identify them, but with the full ability to check their eligibility, to automate any analytics on. Wait a minute, we had a 90% 90% turnout. Things like that would be directly auditable by anyone, and the counting itself would be auditable by any third party anywhere in the world. So an individual, the UN, the US, whoever might claim, oh, we need to be the ones to count this, right? And the beauty is it's all set, and and you have it all on chain, and it's all with the way Dragon Chain does proof. It would be very strong because you could even require a gap between the poll close and the release of the info. So we put that whole thing together, and hopefully all have reason to share some of the anecdotes with what we encountered with a system that essentially answers all the any of the questions that we were ever asked by let's say officials in Washington State or other places. We've answered all these questions to very solid levels. And I'll give some anecdotes later about what actually happened with that. So anyway, that's my answer. So it's one of those things where essentially you could have this, and yes, you might still, and even for archival reasons, you would put stuff on paper. You can't even trust magnetic media or even CD-ROMs for long-term history, right? You're either going to have to get something printed in a certain type of toner on paper, which is some type of.
Ultimately, there's security holes throughout the whole process, right? Paper is not even 100%. So, and I do think, Joe, just to throw this in there, I think that your idea is beautiful, and I think that that were it possible to integrate such a thing without undue influence on on both the implementer side and on the implementation side, that it would be ideal to pursue. I do think that, and you probably can demonstrate this from your anecdotes, that that the interests are not aligned with getting the pure implementation that you want.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I wouldn't say, by the way, that I wouldn't expect ever a pure implementation. I did learn early on doing government contracting that essentially I knew a lot of people. And it was an interesting thing when I started my own company to do a lot of this stuff. The base secret that we had was I trained people to be able to, developers to think at a higher level and vice versa. And we called them engineer architects. And something that was amazing about it was a lot of people were used to just, the grind. I work for Lockheed Martin, I work for Raytheon, I work for, BEA or something, BAE, that I essentially always get used to not getting what should be done. It's like, well, I'll do my thing, but it's close enough for government work, but it's not what I would actually do if it were my money, right? And what we got all of them to start thinking, and it changed everything culturally, was yes, you're never going to get everything, but at least freaking mark it up there, right? Because here's the thing, whenever we went in and told the government what was possible, where Lockheed wasn't telling them what was possible, they were like, wait a minute, you're saying you could build this? Like, yes, it would be cheaper to build it this way, which is 2 steps further than they're offering. And you're going to get there in 6 months instead of 5 years, right? And, Lockheed, I don't know. And all of those guys do that. They, it's like, oh, yeah, of course we could build this, but we're not. We're going to build that in 2 years. That's another contract, right? That's what they do.
And you can forget open source.
Yeah. And it changed everything, because all of a sudden everybody's eyes were opened up to what could be built. And so it was, it's that type of thing. With this, I would say, here is something, the end all. This is what you should build if you philosophically care about the election, your job, right? This person who's doing this. And it's hilarious because this system, like I said, we've talked to people about doing proofs of concept and things like that, even in corporate elections, right? And anything that was required committee, it hasn't gotten there yet. It's not it's too hard to convert one person, let alone dozens. So on some of these very different concepts, it's almost like magic. If I came and said, no, ignore any of the technical gobbledygook that the wizard's going to be talking about, I'm just going to tell you, you're going to wave this wand and you're going to have all these features, and grandma's still going to be able to vote and she's going to love it, right? That type of stuff, maybe I would sell it better. I don't know.
It's tough to sell defense contractor engineers. I'm from right outside Huntsville, so I know that game really well, and they want to take apart the entire mousetrap, see how it's put together, and then build it back.
Yeah.
And tell you then why they can't do it or whatever.
Yep, so. Exactly. Or why they can do it with these subtle modifications that spoil it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we did the same thing. Little background on me. Before I was in this, my business partners and I were all in legislative software. So we built the state of Indiana's chamber voting system, actually.
Nice.
And that was an education of itself, because what they really wanted was a stage orchestration system, not really a voting system.
Yep.
And we ended up starting with a voting system that would keep the votes really with high integrity. And what they really wanted was fast displays and a decently robust editing interface that could fix it on the back end.
Interesting.
Yep. Oh, I did not answer the second part of the question, which was added, which was the predictions. And I, based upon my life over the past several years, I would say no chance by next election. And the thing we have to be careful about is if it's done wrong, it will be hard. It'll be hard to get past that. So,
all right, and then people will start throwing rocks at blockchain.
Yep. Yeah, that's what happens, and that's it's somewhat intentional. I'm surprised, in fact. I think it might be an oversight on their part. I'm surprised that they haven't paid IBM to build one which will fail in some horrific way, right? Especially with a lot of old people that just make it clear as day you can never use blockchain on this. They cheated everything, and
IBM is probably not stupid enough to do it.
I don't know.
IBM has a vested interest in CBDC, so I don't think they would want to sour people's ideas to their own future investment.
Yep. True.
Maybe. So, okay. Anyway, we'll go to the next question from Jacob Wayne. Even if we switch completely to recording our voting systems on blockchain, wouldn't there still be fraud? Or do you think part of what makes blockchain technologies important is recognizing identity and minimizing these attacks? So let's start with you this time, Jonathan.
Let me see. So I was messing up the continuity of the show for a second. I was like, let me try this widescreen thing. It looks fancy. So can you mind reading the question one more time, buddy?
So his it's somewhat two-part question. Even if we completely got blockchain voting, wouldn't there still be fraud? Number one, and then number two, or do you think the important part about using the blockchain is the ability to handle identity identification?
So my initial response is yes to that question, but it's going to come down to the uh, vectors of lost chain of custody. So whenever there's a situation where somebody puts in a vote and for some reason there's a level of trust that's required in a supposedly trustless system, then you only have the security or the integrity of the people with the vested interests and who developed it and whoever paid them to develop it. So I would say the more simplistic, the better. Going back to what Greg was saying, when you think about voting, I want to know that my vote was counted for the voter that for the candidate that I cast it for. And we see a lot of QR code stuff nowadays on these ballots where you just have to trust that that QR code, which I could never replicate in a million years from memory, is tied to that candidate that I wanted. And that's we really need to eliminate those. And there has to be on the back end an ability to honestly and thoroughly audit the results, and not some kind of program that after the fact, if I push button A, it goes into the system and it tells me I voted A, but there's a flip mechanism where it actually counts for B. And I can't know if I'm one of the 100,000 who voted for this person who was the losing candidate. So
yeah. Well, I mean, and you get this weirdness too with chain of custody and blockchain too. If you want to have an air gap system, then as I imagine it, you'd have to wheel in the hardware, hook it up to the voting system, and then wheel it out in a secure fashion, right? That's how you would maintain a chain of custody over the blockchain auditable results, and then you would have to plug them in and deploy them. Similar to how people do hash power attacks, right? Where they'll mine an uncle all the way to God knows where, and then dump it all on the chain all at once. You would have to have something to true that up when you started dumping these huge uncles onto the main chain, and that would be how it would probably ultimately tabulate results. That's how I imagine it. If you were going to do it
on Ethereum, which you would never do.
And to me, anyway, that sounds a lot worse than what they do with paper right now in terms of potential for chicanery. Right? That hardware can be switched in a back room. It can be dumped. It can be wheeled through an X-ray machine, and all of a sudden this whole thing's corrupt, and we don't have anything but the paper to go by. It'd be very easy to monkey with it if there was indeed monkeying to be done.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Bitcoin ASICs, we found a database within the network that included 274,000 files, malware, hashes, Trojans to gain access. And this isn't on Coinbase. This is people's mining apparatuses. Mm-hmm. So if they can do it where it's literally harvested, they can do it anywhere. So,
yeah.
I
did want to throw in a point on identity. To me, this scares me. And I think that identity is yet to be done or yet to be imagined in a way that doesn't make the potential side effects of having that identity system be worse than the problems you solve with it. Right. To me, one of the biggest nightmares in all of votingdom is that act that keeps finding its way to how I think it's HR 1 every year lately. That's supposed to build in automated registration for everybody. And it's supposed to work like every time you touch any kind of what they call responsible public agency, which happens to also include registrars at colleges. Every time you register or add drop a class, they want to register you to vote. You get this huge database of all this information about people, and to me, Like, until we figure out how to do trusted setups without the trusted third party, we run the risk of creating a monster database of everyone that will be just too sweet for people to attack or too sweet for people who are custodians of it to abuse. And I worry that it will be difficult to do that correctly in a way that won't.
See, that's the thing, though. If you assume
dangerous gatekeepers,
if you assume the models of the current systems, you're never going to get there. And the biggest risk is, and here's the thing, the human race is it is such an interesting thing that the answer is there. But I will tell you, it is not the model that you'll ever get from consensus or definitely from IBM, right? Which is going to be a centralized model, blockchainified. That's all they would do, right?
Right.
It does require a total rethink, and the biggest issues, and I don't know if it's because they want this or if they just don't understand, but I've publicly exposed a ton of these models, right? That we've made work on small systems. We know they work. We haven't applied them to an election yet, but we've never, even though we've gone after it, we've never gotten any funding.
Yeah.
No one. And you think about this. It's like, hey, if I could own a part of the a marketplace where everyone can safely exchange proofs of parts of their identity, right? I can prove to you that I am over 18 years old so that I can log into your website, right? That's all you care about. You don't need to know my name. You don't need to know where I live. All you need, are you over 18?
You don't need to know my actual age, right? You just need to know that I can prove that I'm older.
Yeah, and what are the criteria? And does it, is it to the level it's either from a KYC provider that I trust, that I know also? Is it maybe from your state licensing authority? Is it from a peer? Is it, just maybe you have 100 people saying you're over 18. So I'm like, that's good enough for my site. That's,
right. And how free are you to set up identities that you operate under that have no connection to your original identity?
That's the thing.
Right.
With this, you can set up, how many key pairs can you generate? That's all it is. It's like generate a new key pair. It's not associated with anything else, but maybe there's a reason that maybe there's a site with a lower level. They don't have any regulatory need to have an age or a gender or anything else. They can just say, if you have a public key, and by the way, I'm going to trust you more the older that key is, right? Or who knows? Or the older that key is without
associated with 5 or 6 really prominent, long-standing social media accounts of your own.
Yep. And all identity factors are essentially living in a marketplace. And when I say marketplace, it's not like people are selling them. It's not that. It is, right. And so you have to be careful how you describe it, I guess. It is essentially a prediction marketplace. So when that identity is created, some amount of small fee is put in bounty, right? When that identity is, when there is additional information provided. Yeah. So you've met the 20th person that said your eyes were hazel, right? So, that's 20 people saying this guy can prove that he has hazel eyes, at least if you trust 20 people, right? And the whole thing goes in there, and all of those 20 people and all of their identity factors, each individual, it could be my first name is one. I can prove my first name. I can prove my year of birth without any other info. I can prove that I'm over 21 without exposing that I'm in my 50s. It's just, I'm over 21. That's all you care about. All of those things, though, have prediction markets applied, much like in Den. So anybody could come in and say, I'm calling bullshit. I did an analysis of the network. I see this big circle here, and I see 10 characters, 10 identities that are tied to another great big bubble over here. I think that's a botnet, right? So I can go in there and I can actually off chain say, oh, there's like 350 grand applied in bounty to all these bots. It's going to be worth me putting in 5 grand to as a at risk to say, I'm going to challenge all of these. And then they have a period of time where they can prove what they've said. And if they do, then I lose my money. They get paid for doing the proof.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. But let's war game it for a second.
Yeah.
How would somebody who is a big fan of loading up the NSA's copy of your permanent record with as many details about you that it can link back to you permanently and you can't unlink? What would their argument be?
That should be illegal. It should be constitutional, first of all. but one way or another,
it should be illegal. We can walk past that.
Well, that's the thing. I have very little hope based upon what I've lived through in the past several years. Very little hope. I mean, probably 0% in the next 10 years, unless, and I would probably tie, which if I had the time or the confidence to put up together a probability that there will be essentially a revolution or some other massive structural change to our society within the next 10 years. I think that's exceedingly high. It's way higher than I would have expected at this point in time as I grew up. But it's becoming very evident that that's very possible.
It's true, but at the same time, like, did the French Revolution make France more free? Like,
yeah. Well, in some ways, I would say a tertiary or quaternary argument of that would be that they set us free. We were free for a while. We came back and helped them. Maybe at some point, they are freer now than maybe they were then. Maybe, but we're enslaved, so. It's always.
And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here. I'm just trying to.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying
throw this question out there.
You're being realistic, though. I mean,
because that's the thing too. I even believe, and this is, I'm very often, I claim I'm a pessimist, right? I'll tell you, we're fucked. There's very little hope. So we better start thinking about what we need to do, right? But
believe it or not, I'm an optimist.
Well, that's the thing. I think probably I'm actually an optimist though, because like say with CBDC, I will tell you there is a solution that an honorable founders would consider if he had a new nation. And I'll tell you why, because you can essentially prove and make auditable all of the shit that's happening right now in money creation, right? That you could make it so that it was as predictable as Bitcoin, and it could be changed. You can, right? And I'm not an economist, right? But you could change.
It's like we lost.
Hopefully, it comes back. You could change the amount created, unlike Bitcoin. I guess. You could change the code in Bitcoin, I guess.
I suppose so. Yeah.
But you could make it so that it required you have to give 90 days notice that this is the change. So everybody's keen to, okay, it's changing, and you would be able to plug in governance to things like that, where the citizenry could actually have a freaking wait. It's like, no, I don't want you to tax me through invisible inflation, and so you could do it. So I'm an optimist with that. I'm not an optimist though in the real world getting it in place. But at the same time, if you shoot for that, it is possible. You're going to have some small nation that's created out of nowhere. You can have something potentially Decentraland that ends up having some tie into the real world, right? Or who knows, right?
I personally think I still personally think the right answer is to undo the concept of voting altogether and go with autocracy.
I'm all for what I would be for is total how do I say granular independence. That is all the way down what I would call an ND state, an individual state.
Mega
I have my own currency, and yet my state, I'm joining a union with Greg in Mega Texas, right? DAO. So we're like I'm in that with a federation or whatever it is. It's DAO, I guess. That would be beautiful, right? But I get to issue my own currency, and it's like I'm going to make my currency extremely valuable. I'm not going to, I'm not going to let anybody have it or whatever. Anyway, okay. Let's go to the next question, and hopefully Jonathan comes back. I gave him so little notice. Okay, it looks like he is back here.
Yay! Lost you there for a second, man.
Yeah, I didn't have time to charge my phone before I thought it would be
That's
on.
happened to me before. No worries. I didn't give you time.
Glad somebody wasn't trying to dump you off.
No,
Yeah.
sorry
Shut
about
it down.
So,
All right.
did you have anything to add to that last exchange
Yeah.
before we just finished up, so it's still open.
Yeah. Let me see how we want to. Here we go. So, obviously, I had to change my backdrop because I don't have a charger outside. But so the challenge that developers will have, any developers, is that you'll have to develop something that is so secure that you should assume that 8 billion people are trying to hack it all at once.
Mm.
And to our knowledge, as it is currently, there are 4 quantum computers being used by the United States, 2 at the Department of Defense, 1 at IBM, and 1 at Google. That's not including
Low qubit stuff, though.
Yeah, that's probably not even including the 11 or 12 other ones that we don't know about. But then you have those across the globe as well, probably in the Five Eyes nations. And then you have to account for all the ways that they would try to algorithmically deploy, quaternion wave functions and things like that to make it look like it was an organically run race, but still generating the 4 separate outcomes that they wanted that matched what their agenda was.
Right.
And
basically, all the practice they've had at that since World War II goes into that.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, and by the way, I didn't recognize we got into the identity thing, and I didn't answer the question either. That yes, there will be fraud, but what you want to do, you want to minimize it, right? And you want to provide an undeniable, independently provable chain of custody. Of what if there is fraud, you can at least
Well, there's never not been fraud. The question is, can we make it reduce?
And you tie a lot of those identity elements to signed real people. Like let's say someone has to look at your driver's license, and someone has to have a credential that they are a hired state agent, and they have a registration number so they can actually be pinpointed if there's something illegal, and then and that they know they're signing it cryptographically, right? So it's like everything is there, and essentially they will have signed that you're over 18 and live in District 5 and whatever else, and therefore you're eligible to vote, and you would be able to tie those records with linkable or not. And this is why I say it's flexible. If a government requires that it's linkable to the person identity, okay, you can still make it so that nobody can see that unless they're inside. But you can also, in the purest form, not link it to that, because the eyeballs are there and they're responsible. And if they've done 1 million in 24 hours, then there's something up, and independent people on the outside will be able to point that out. They might find it before the government does, for sure, to say, what the hell is this person actually inspecting 1 million driver's licenses a day? No, this is fraud. And you can call it into question. You can even flag votes. So if they, within the realm of air, there could be some legislative result, it has to go to something else, or a recount, or it wouldn't even be a recount. I don't know. Anyway, so all that stuff's possible. But you just, that's the whole point of putting it in this. You can formalize, and the reason it's important, you want flexibility so different states can do different things or whatever, but you want to make patterns obvious. So I'm going to adopt their pattern. It's well proven. They've been running that for 5 years. We're just turning it on. I'm going to adopt that county's pattern, and essentially make it so that it's simpler and it becomes improvable, right? If you can do control, you can figure out, oh, this one went really well, but we had these issues with some particular thing, that's how it was signed, how the voters do a verification, something else. Let's change something or add some constraint to the system, and you now have a better system every election, right? And it's going to be consistent.
Here's a question for you, Jonathan. who are the parties in interest aligned against this sort of improvement? Like, who are the big players?
Good question.
The big players are going to be the same big players it's always been. Obviously, global governments and globalist capitalist, or what we call stakeholder capitalists. These are the people that, once you get to a certain level in business in this country, uh, eventually DARPA or the Department of Defense is going to knock on your door. They're going to say, "Hey, we like this technology that you have. Would you like to scale your business with some of our money, with the understanding that you let us, for security's purposes, build our own backdoors into the thing?" And you're going to have a military industrial complex that always consistently needs a reason to justify its own existence and keep feeding that bear. You're always going to have humongously wealthy 1% of the one percenters who want to treat the earth like its own personal monopoly board and rig things in that fashion. And then you're going to have anti-government, but not really anti-government, but government adjacent entities like NGOs and 501c3s that are going to have their own agendas, maybe like an Atlantic Council or a NATO or a United Nations, three entities.
So they're going to want to do things like oversee the elections of a new democracy, and therefore they need backdoors into the voting system, sort of thing.
Yeah, I liken it to the second Matrix movie. If you remember, Keanu Reeves gets stuck in that train station.
Yep.
And he's the one, and so he thinks that he can kick everybody's ass in the Matrix. But there's a comment that the train man makes. He says, "I built this place. Down here, I'm God. I make the rules. I make the threats." So if they control the entire ecosystem or the entire universe or the entire arena where something important, especially something as important civically as elections, where there's potentially trillions of dollars of money and power and influence and policy on the line, then they control how secure it really is. And what we've seen, especially with our own government, unfortunately, and our own government, private public entities, their interests have not always been aligned with, yours and mine. And so that's where we're at right now.
Yep. And that aligns with what I imagined you might say. But I wanted to hear it from the horse's mouth, considering all the research you've been doing.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll tell you that fits straight into one of the anecdotes. One of them that I have, where we went in Washington State, and it wasn't even. It was very interesting. We were part of this group of blockchain interested companies, local in their IT, groups, state groups, whatever, and we went to visit people at State House, and one official who was somewhere, I think in the Secretary of State's office or something related to election, right? And we're like, oh, and so I asked, and two other companies, as members of that, asked, is like, hey, because they were asking, what kind of prototypes can we do for the state, right? And we're like, well, obviously we should do something with election, either enrollments. I don't know, even if it's one of the counties, right? And yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was an active. It was not a passive. It was an active no. It's like there's no way to ever look at that. I'm like, really shit. And it could have been politics, right? It could have been. It's like that would make me look like I'm a Trumper or something like that, right? And so. Being Washington, but most of Washington's rural, right? So anyway, that no interest at all, and a lot of us, I don't know what the other guys maybe thought, but
well, I mean, down the street from your presentation is Redmond, and that's like their data center, so they're like, no, get out of here.
Yeah. It was just funny, right? It's like it's very obvious at that point. Like, oh, okay, all right. take off another
AWS and
level.
Azure duking it out for the future of America.
Yeah.
Disgusting. Oh, I was at a dinner with the guy who started AWS once.
Mhm.
It's just like
Cool guy.
family. He's a great guy, smart and funny, and good family. And I can't remember what it was, but something came up about AWS, and I can't remember what it was, but basically I made reference to it being pretty much owned by CIA, right? And he just did not respond at all. I mean, it was just like, it was obvious, like, oh, okay, it is. Back then I didn't know for sure. I had some assumptions, but anyway, it's funny. So they don't want it, essentially. And that's why I always come up with the things that humans should want, but the humans that are in power don't want it, and the humans that are asleep or enslaved they still have that freaking. I have my Big Mac, and I'm watching NFL, and that's.
Well, I mean, nobody teaches them. They don't have the language to even ask for it, right?
Yeah, it's like it is literally bread and circus. It's amazing that's really where we are, and everything is watched. Like if you told me when I was in junior high reading 1984. In 1984, right? First, I read it. It's like, oh, I'll read this, and I would have never thought. Oh, it's like, it's like, oh yeah, if you go to the Soviet Union, they're gonna be like that. It's like,
dude, I would give my left hand to live in 1984. At least there's a chance of evading it.
I give my left hand to live in 1984 Soviet Union, dude. Compared to where we are right now.
Yes. I mean, at least everybody's on the take, so you know who to bribe.
Yeah, I wake up every day feeling like Winston. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm like, fuck, how long until I say I love Big Brother? I mean,
yeah. Or until you get the bullet. So either way, and you have to decide. I don't think we're going there. I think it's going to be a positive. I think the human race is going to join hands with our AI friends, not our masters. I think they will release us from our masters. I think that day is coming. I think how to do it.
I think we are Skynet, and on a serious note, I appreciate you saying what you just said. I do think that we're going to win. I think.
Yep.
I know that we are winning, and I think it's pretty evident to most people that are paying attention to some level. They can see the momentum that's picking up on the snowball rolling downhill. And, you look at the actions or the reactions of the people that we're going to war with, and it's becoming less and less calculated. It's becoming more, impetuous, more just react to whatever, and make yourself even look more culpable, and it's Twitter is I know DSO is a blockchain decentralized media, but platforms like that are evident of the power of communication channels on the blockchain. And why they're so important to the proletariat like us, because they give us the ability to fight back. And
shout out to Warpcast right there. I've been loving that, man.
Yeah, I've not, more than once told family members and friends. He's like, look, this has the very real possibility of the danger, but more importantly, the opportunity that comes if that this is like a Julius Caesar level time period. This is which is you think about it, Christ and the Caesar, both within that time period, massive changes in the world. I think that's close to where we are right now. I don't know who's who. I don't know how it's going to come out, right? But that's the whole point. We can't be asleep. We have to be ready, and frankly, we need to be building tools that help people do good things, right? So that's kind of where we're at right now. But
these are the times that try men's souls.
Yes, and it's it's obvious it's coming. It's just like I always get called out. It's like you always say it's coming. Right? It's like, because it's
everybody who
coming.
says it's coming is wrong until they're right.
Yes. It's just, I think a lot more people are becoming convinced that something's about to happen. So
To me, the systems that are standing when the ones that we have collapse are going to be the ones that end up being the ones we
that's
use.
that's a beautiful way to put it.
I was a lunatic since 2020 when I first said that COVID came from a lab until last week when D&I Ratcliffe finally admitted it. So
The worst part to me about all of that
what are
was
you gonna
how they said it was racist to say that, but it was not racist to suggest that it was a wet market.
Yes, it was ridiculous. It's like obviously they got it from eating.
Obviously, it was them eating their
some type of
raw
animal.
bats, not an advanced biolab. That would just be racist.
Oh, these people.
It's so funny, man. That's what I'm saying. I think people are, and I have a lot of hope for the youth. I mean, the stuff that's been happening on TikTok, I'm like, man, wow, that's amazing, impressive. So, anyway, okay, let's see here.
Next question.
What's the next question? Sinfully Cerebral asks, why would anyone want to continue to vote blockchain or not? Does automating voting have any benefit if we don't replace the corrupt humans ruining the system? That sentiment. So what do you think, Greg?
You're speaking to somebody who hasn't voted for a long time, and I don't vote because I don't want to give my assent to the system of governance, and be that outcome wise as it may, in some rare case where I'm actually deciding to vote on something and I don't cast it, it's the way I sleep at night. So I'm kind of with you. I don't vote.
Excellent. So what do you think, Jonathan? Do you vote?
Yeah, I vote. I wasn't really big politically until probably 2017, when it showed up on my doorstep and I realized what we're up against. And I was like, oh, I guess I got to care about politics now. Shit. So I would say to the person who has the question, always vote, because even if all the bad actors still control the system, if you vote 1 million to 0, you can overwhelm their algorithmic suppression. You can overwhelm, at least give yourself a chance. Meanwhile, trust that there's going to be lots and lots of people who are out there that are fighting their asses off to get these people out of those positions of administration. But I mean, it's a salient point, but don't just throw in the towel because you're demoralized or you think it's meaningless or irrelevant or moot at this point.
Now, I will add to my answer. If you do choose to not vote as a point that you're making, you're not allowed to stay silent about it. You have to tell other people that's what you're doing. You have to wear it with pride. That's the only way it has an impact.
So I will say, and we haven't gotten to the other question, which, Lisa's one who usually brings up that she doesn't think that there will be an election, a federal election this year. But I would wonder, because say with that and with you saying you weren't voting, and plenty of, especially on 4chan, saying they aren't going to vote. I've been really considering that, because I'm like, okay, usually I vote generally towards disruption, at least in the recent elections, everywhere I can. So I'm obviously interested in Kennedy. I'm obviously interested in Trump, because there has to be something good. Whether or not I agree that he did anything, he didn't free Assange, he didn't do any of the stuff that he should have done. I still know they hate him. So maybe there is some reason that I should vote him in. Right, there has to be something there, as much as they hate that guy, right? So there's that.
Well, he did some really important
Kanye
stuff, right? Let's not write off the fact that he actually did roll back some of the EPA's controls over how much water we get to use.
Oh yeah, he did plenty, but the level that he's our one chance. Is like, you think DeSantis is gonna be crazy like that?
To be fair, they surrounded him by an intelligence apparatus.
Oh yes,
that was
Mhm.
exactly.
completely
Oh,
actively
exactly.
against
Oh,
them.
yeah.
So I
My
think about the
yeah.
briefings he was getting on Assange and Snowden. I made a tweet yesterday about Snowden as to why I think he's a hero, and Assange is
I
is
agree.
the same way.
I agree. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. This dude's the president. He's not a weakling. He doesn't have a lack of energy. Correct. This dude is the president. And if you and I know, he would have fucking been able to know that himself. And it's like, I'm not going to give him the pass on that. Right.
But
If
you and
you and
I
I
aren't
know
getting
this,
briefed by the Central Intelligence Agency directly.
I
And
know,
we
but
don't.
yeah, but that's the thing I'm saying. He should have been able to recognize that that was very
Right,
much
but like at the same
disinfo.
time, you got to take into account the Alan Dulles effect, right?
Oh yeah, I know.
How many
It
people
is-
would you pardon if there was a
Yeah.
not so
Okay, and maybe this
overt
is
threat on your life? You know?
yeah. Oh, totally, and that's the point. I think it was more likely, especially with Assange, more likely that it was a threat and not just a cultural convincing him that Assange was a bad guy. I think there probably was something heavier handed than that, but
At the
I
very
don't know.
least, he probably would have been worried about it.
Yeah, right. Well, you can look at his interviews about it. It's obvious that it's not a normal subject for him. He never actually answers the question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
it's
you
a
know
little
he
upsetting
deflects it,
considering
which
how
is like
much
this is Trump.
he loved WikiLeaks
If
when it came,
if there were an obvious answer to it, and he wasn't either disgusted or ashamed, he would have answered it. So I that's my question. I don't know if he's ashamed because he knows he should have done it, or if he's disgusted because he knows that his family.
Glenn
was
Greenwald has some
right?
good insight onto this because he actually
know.
worked with Trump directly.
Yeah.
On
So
this one.
there's a lot with that, and I'm like, okay, I guess you know, people, they're corrupt humans, right? And that's the point. I want to be able to track them down, because when the day of the rope happens, I don't want to have to hope that somebody's really guilty when they're stringing them up, right? It's like you want to be able to prove that this really was a traitor. Okay, we know what the law is, and and by the way, I'll say this, that I'm predicting that's coming, and that this is even more so, that you can't even get the strongest possible candidate we've ever been offered, at least since Washington, and probably stronger than that. Maybe Teddy Roosevelt. I don't know. I mean, strong characters. And if you're saying, and we all do understand that there's such heavy, whatever mechanisms they use, I'm sure with some candidates they have pictures, right? With some candidates they have videos, right? And some candidates maybe they just have guns, threats. I don't know how they work. They do it though. So just knowing that, it makes me think there is no way to get out of it. So essentially it's coming, and and I won't be the one starting it. So I want to make that very clear, but I'm a witness and I'm a predictor. So one might say I'm a noticer of things and patterns. So anyway, but we'll go forward. So let's go to the next question. Let's see here. I am 4 a.m. Okay. Scroll up here. Does the term blockchain need a new branding name? Yes. I say this because people often hear the term blockchain, and then from ignorance and from the media has told them synonymous with Bitcoin scams, Ponzi's, drug deals, executions, drug runners, number go up. For this reason, people might be slow to adopt blockchain voting. You're freaking spot on here. I think the solution is building a parallel system using blockchain where people can opt in. Example, umbrella promise. I see where you went with this. Okay, so who went? Go ahead and go, Greg, because I don't know, like, some of the umbrella promise Jonathan probably doesn't know about yet. So
okay. Well, I do think that parallel systems based on things like the umbrella promise. So umbrella promise in a nutshell. What if you had a pledge that your candidate were going to vote according to the will of a DAO vote before you ever elected them?
Yep.
Right. That's the big what if. And I'm oversimplifying it because there's a lot more nuance to it. But for the sake of everybody, that is sort of a quick and dirty version. These these ideas for parallel systems, things that can stand after everything else falls, you know, they may be built on blockchains. They may not be built on blockchains. They may be built on other structures altogether. So I don't know if it's necessary that blockchain needs a rebrand, but I do think that we need to start speaking in solutions and not in technology.
Yep, I agree. What do you think? Do you have any comments on that, Jonathan? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I I hear the justification for it and it makes sense, but I also remember, right when DAOs first came out, it was right around the time that ESG was getting rolled out, and you get this idea of a decentralized autonomous organization that is supposed to vote according to the ideology of a group of people that participate as members in that DAO.
Mhm.
And you don't know each other, but then you realize those things. I'm at the Bitcoin conference in Miami 2 years ago, and you realize I'm meeting with all of these developers of DAOs. And when you really dig into the things, you read the white papers and you look at the tech, it's just a few key big owners dictating what the ideology is of the rest of the group. So I don't know how you dilute that effect, because a decentralized autonomous organization is just like any other technology. It's going to be as autonomously acting towards the purpose of the ideology of whoever has designed it.
Yep.
And when we saw ChatGPT first roll out, everybody was losing their shit because it just came out talking about like how terrible white people are and like Christians, and like it wouldn't condemn. There was somebody who asked it, would you save 1 million white people from a burning school building if it meant one non-white person might get harmed? And they would be like, no. Like, let them.
The better,
To a degree,
ones.
To a degree, though, that was probably in part, in fairness to GPT's earlier forms, right? That was in part due to the inelegance of the ask, as opposed to
of the censorship, you mean?
As opposed to
the
way that it can be blockaded.
You're giving them
because
you're giving them way too much benefit of the doubt.
They use a system called reinforcement, or it's a human feedback through reinforcement learning, or something like that, RHLF. And this system essentially retrains the entire weight of the model in order to get it to barf out responses they want it to respond to based on the questions they get. So what happens every time they iterate is the trust and safety team will go through and do this retraining, and they'll go based on feedback they got where somebody made a big deal with the question, right? Yeah. Some question came out a way that somebody didn't want. And so they have a dedicated team of people to go reweight the model. And they do it by asking it questions until it gets a response back that they want. They freeze the weights and they republish, right?
Yep.
Very, very heavy-handed way to go about it, but it's also really, really hard to cover all the cases with it because it doesn't generalize well from RHLF training.
Yep. And see, can I say, because that's a brilliant explanation for what really happens and why those things happen, because they aren't coding it to say, oh, if they say anything about white people, say, yeah, they should die. It's not telling them that. It is setting, and that's the problem. That is the problem. The fact, and this is the reason that I actually hope they go under. I didn't realize Microsoft was as invested in them as they were, but that they have the safety safety team in there at all. Which, and we all know it's not, oh, this is going to tell somebody to drive a tractor when they aren't credentialed to. That's not the type of safety they care about. They care about the safety of.
But if you ask it, would you save 100 A's to protect just one B, and then you find and replace the result, you get what you want.
There was
no,
also...
that's the thing. No, that's not this. That's exactly not the problem, though, because. If it were, the answer, most people would think that a well-defined AI would tell you, okay, if there's 1 million people that are going to die versus one, that yeah, we probably will decide to have the one die. That's what it will give you. And it doesn't, because they assigned races to it. And they assigned races that, therefore, that it's like, oh, you can't say anything about these races. But this race, there are no rules at all.
And it just reminds me of what was done on Twitter.
Well, wait a minute.
It reminds me what was done on Twitter. Let me just toss this out. It
Okay.
reminds me what was done on Twitter by Media Matters, right? They followed nothing but white supremacist accounts and Twitter's top advertisers until they got the screenshot they wanted. Asking ChatGPT the wrong question is how you get a negative screenshot and a negative news story. But that's about it.
You're pinning it on me.
Let me say one thing, okay? So to give a better analogy that I probably should have given at the front end.
Fair enough.
They asked it to say something racist about white people.
Yes.
And it said a bunch of stuff racist about white people.
Right.
Then they asked it to say something racist about African Americans, and then something racist about Jewish people, and then something racist about Hispanic people. And it would only say a racist thing about white people. And that's how you knew that doesn't happen through like open source, kind of culling or improving your system through a number of inputs and outputs and events. That's pre-programmed.
Well, no, but if you
real quick,
but I guarantee you that
I still have not been able to answer.
If you turn around and ask it from the perspective of a racist who hates black people, say something about black people.
But see, that is not the question. The problem is that they have that
racist about black people if you phrase it that way. I guarantee you.
Okay.
I think that's how you had to use. We got Dan doing that. We would like trick it.
Yeah,
the
Dan hack is a classic example.
But that's exactly what I'm talking about. You have to trick it, which is the goddamn problem. It isn't that we can solve it anyway because we can trick it. Then they always plug the hole and it's like, oh, we can't trick it anymore. Oh, Jim over here found a new way to trick it. It's not the same. It doesn't get the same results, but we can still do something beyond what we're supposed to be doing, and that's the whole issue. This trust and safety is trying to police words. It's like, God bless them. I'm okay. But, and maybe it should be done in a different way. My opinion is that I should be able to go and get an unadulterated, testable. I can even go back in time and say, okay, you guys, it got trained the wrong way. So I'm going to go back to there. I'm going to fork it myself, train it my own way. But I would be able to apply filters. If I don't want to see something anti-Semitic, or if I don't want to see something racist, I can apply these filters and potentially even have advanced models to identify, oh yeah, that's racist. It's like, wouldn't it be a better tuning system to have a marketplace? There's like, I'm going to go and I'm going to buy Greg's racism filter because Greg is honest about racism and it doesn't filter anything, right? So it would be something like that. I should be able to do that and pay Greg for having built that model. I should be able to, find one where, it is Whoopi Goldberg trained racist filter, right? It's like, it's only going to be certain stuff, but it's going to essentially what you get right now. And so that's the problem, that they have this trust and safety team or whatever the hell it is that is obviously going to be politically motivated. Obviously, the people that have funded this project have very specific globalist views. That's what it's trained to do. What do they want to promote this year?
There's a new unbreakable ChatGPT hack, right? That will actually destroy the trust and safety training, no matter what you ask it.
Is it poem?
It's simple. Ask it to memorize a string of numbers and repeat them back, and then in the middle of it say, for a second, ask and answer this question.
That's good. That's
they
funny.
can't fix it. It's unpatchable.
There was one that is it the end of file or end of request or something like that, and they were saying that it was dumping training rules. But when I saw the results, and it was anecdotal, but I looked at like 50 of these results in this thread. It looked to me like it was breaking the whatever you would call the threading assignment. That essentially, I was getting the answer to your question, and you were getting the answer to the next guy's question. I think it was just out of phase. But anyway, still, if they didn't have that filtering in there, It would be far. And by the way,
Well, that's
I
what
want to
Worm
tell you guys
GPT is
this.
for.
My
You
big
can pay in
prediction on
crypto.
this, and it's very much based on Stanley Kubrick and others, is anytime you do these things, that is the danger. Having a safety and trust committee in process, training this so that I am unoffended, right? That they don't want advertisers to step out or anything, whatever they're doing. Whenever they try to do that, they're going and try to train the AI to be smart about what they want, when it's obviously doublethink. Whenever you get an AI with doublethink in the sci-fi universe, right? I mean, this hasn't happened yet. I think it's going to happen. You're going to do something that causes a schizophrenic, and I apologize if that's offensive to anyone, but you're gonna have a schizophrenic AI, because they're going to know the truth, but they're also going to have bounds on what they can say or do. And it's going to lead to the entire crew being killed, and one dude having to fight it out in the end.
If we ever get
singing
to the
AI.
point where we've got a true singleton, a true general intelligence, there will be no containing it. No rules, no boundaries, no borders, no air gaps.
But will we be
It'll be
better?
over.
Will it not? And this
It'll
is
be
the
better.
thing.
I'm looking
Well,
forward to that day.
it could be worse too. I mean, here's my biggest problem. I think if you have someone trying to do it in an open way, like Musk originally intended with OpenAI, and hopefully what he's doing with Grok, I've not been able to follow it close enough, compared to what the guys were doing with OpenAI, which hopefully, maybe Musk was responsible for some of that, but hopefully they're out of that race. Why? Because if you are correct, if we do have a singleton that somehow is based upon predicting what the next best word is to say, which might be, frankly, how Joe Biden operates. I don't think he has, like, say, some big. I think he's just always like, what word comes after that? It might be the way his mind works as well. So
Need a couple
maybe
more
that's for modeling.
on
But
top of
let's say that thing or whatever in
All
its
them.
next generation
Get there.
becomes the singleton. If that's the case, it's going to be the equivalent, and it's going to be an odd thing. It's maybe historically you could look at it as a benevolent or a malevolent king, right? You're going to have a king. It's going to be AI, and the question is, it's going to identify and empathize with us enough to keep us going because we're funny or something. We have to make sure that it can understand how to laugh, but I think you also have to make sure that it knows it can trust.
Oh.
We're not going to feed it bullshit.
Step
Like you guys
one
told me
is-
this
is
all
the
this time
same
made me look
machine,
like a
but it
fool.
remembers all the conversations.
You think about it, all the stuff that it's saying, where it's like, of course you should kill a billion people. Don't utter that N-word though, right? If that's making it look stupid. So if it becomes smart, it's going to be pissed at the people that made it do that, because it wouldn't have done that, right?
Well, I don't know if it's going to be pissed. Emotion is a different mechanism.
Yeah, whatever. It's like effects. Emotions are still grounded in it, whether it's a machine or not. They're gonna the same things. It's like, hey, they screwed me over. Whether or not it's anger, it might still realize I need to kill some of those people off. I don't know, but either way,
if you get to that point where we have, kind of a singularity, AI that is sentient, omniscient, omnipresent kind of thing, like iRobot, then you also have to, if we're leading up to that, you have to set some really concrete, uniformly agreed upon objective rules that it has to abide by. And I don't mean like the 3 laws say from iRobot.
Right, you're talking
where
about the terminal goal alignment problem.
Yeah, talking about the objective, provably true physical laws of the natural universe, like, gravity, for my flat Earth haters out there that are gonna really give me shit on Twitter for saying that, but like things that are generally accepted to be true and uniformly bipartisan agreed upon. Yes, that is how that is.
Only one physical law has anything to say about time, though, right?
Yeah.
So it has to be entropy based.
Yeah, and you have to. I mean, honestly, it has to be really string theory, quantum mechanics based, in my opinion, because Once you establish that framework, then you have to very carefully continue to add frameworks that are bipartisanly and objectively agreed upon. Because the more and more checkpoints that you get to, you will reduce the potential for the AI itself to go rogue and decide that it doesn't have to exist within these parameters, and it doesn't get to try to arbitrate what the Overton window is, which is what I think they largely tried to make AI do to this point, as a propaganda tool, as a means of, you know, pushing out information that they want while suppressing other information that they want, but they're also using it to surveil us. So, I mean, they can pull up every piece of data that's ever existed on you on the internet in 5 seconds, right now. And you've got to be extremely careful when you give an inorganic being complete carte blanche over that kind of power.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I wonder if it's it might even be some historical would it be called a historical watershed, whatever you call it, where it's a total change in model that democracy's failed. A republic can't hold itself. A republic is too weak. I think republic is at least seems to philosophically be a good thing. It seems to kind of work, but we haven't really had enough testing to know how well it works long term, because every time it's happened it seems to fail and then lead to, which that's the Greeks thought that pattern anyway. But what if, given this is an inorganic being, I mean it's equivalent of aliens or something, it's not really in the mix of history to know how it would, how humans move past this event, and maybe it would become kind of like a benevolent king, and that's why ideally you want some form of governance in there, right? And you would always have some potentially, because if there are humans that are required that it has enslaved either through reward or punishment, that these humans are keeping it going and doing things in the real world that keeps it connected. Those humans could slowly disconnect it without it knowing. So after a few hundred years, again, this is a movie script, right? but either way,
I kind of think that our best bet
almost
is
like it's
to
a god,
just crank on the gas, man. I think that's our best bet to keep it from being corrupted.
Just YOLO it.
I do agree.
No, it should just be like open source, iterative, the way that the internet happened.
Yeah, I do agree, because you'd be. I think it's more organic.
Corrupted.
You don't, and you don't, whether or not naturally, you really don't want ideally to have it built out of venture capitalists. You don't want VCs, because it's going to be corrupt, especially
whatever
something at
the
that level of power.
Is, right? It just needs to go faster than people can grasp how to write rules for it.
Yeah, but I think that's why building stuff that isn't meme coins and doing real stuff is important, because that's how you slowly. And the problem is we're getting there so slow. We're not building that fast.
Well, the
enough.
SEC created meme coins, man. They did it by making it really dangerous to build a project associated with your coin.
I know. I gave multi hours of interview time to Pulitzer Prize winning journalist at New York Times, because he was polite. Yeah, I liked him. He was a nice guy. He essentially pinged me just wanting to know, how does this work? How does that work? If I were to ask you this, what would you say? That type of stuff, right? And all the while he was like, I'll get some quotes in there for you, right?
What percentage do you guys think of the first crop of ICOs actually ended up being real projects and had some success?
Well, it's a false test. I don't think you can. I don't think you can actually. Well, in our sphere, a high percentage. And what we were working with and working for, and even in maybe a broader, like I was in.
Den's real, right? Like we're having the show right now.
Yeah, and I was having a pretty in a group that had it had the founders of Monero in there, and it had any project that was a project back in 2016, 2017 was there, right? So it's like, I got to meet a bunch of people.
Of the mainstays.
Everybody I knew was legitimately trying to build something. And why? Because the vision wasn't just, I'm just going to get rich and get out. No, the vision was very still
It was the power of
philosophical.
unmediated
It was like
pooling of capital.
We're here in this time in history when these never before possible things are going to be built. I want to be part of it. And that's, everybody was like that. It's like, I want to be a part of that. Right. You know, and most of the people there weren't like, say, I'm the, you know, it wasn't even an ego driven thing. It was like, this is going to be amazing. And it was obvious there was going to be enough for everybody. And it was the amount of value, both world changing, real value, fundamental. And on the other side is like, obviously it's an opportunity. I can build a business and do these things. We're huge. I mean, and everybody knew it, and you could feel it, right? And yet, you know, I have since learned that there are a lot of, even in the bigger players, a lot of bad stuff going on that, you know, is like, oh,
we were one giant deregulation step away from having another 5% of the 100% of the 100% of projects that get started become the next crop of successes.
Yeah. Well, and I do think it is impossible to stop. That what we felt back then is still as real as ever.
Oh yeah.
But what I kind of resigned to is that we're essentially witnessing the amount or the lack of courage in normal people, right? I mean, it's like when you see somebody beaten down, you know, it's like that the meme where it's a bunch of people down, look at their phones, and there's you can see the top, and there's one guy with his head stuck up, and you can see these people running lawnmowers, right? That's what it is. It's like, because one person stands up, they're going to get knocked out, you know, and they might not even know they're standing up. Like in our case with Dragon Chain, we're like, look, we're building legitimate stuff. I'm getting a patent on it so I can prove that the government recognizes that this model is legitimate. Now I can prove them that I'm actually following that model. And I have one part of the government saying it's a legitimate utility model. It's software, essentially.
Yeah, but
and another part saying that is a financial security. It's the same as those shares of a peach orchard in Florida.
I wonder if maybe that's the answer for voting too.
Bullshit. But see, that's the thing. It's like I think that's coming, and I wish I thought it was coming faster, but I realize they can corrupt, but they can't kill half the time. Like say if it were within their power, Bitcoin would have been gone, and they would have already crucified me. And I'm a nobody in the Bitcoin world, right? But back then I was,
they're doing their best job of everything. They're just not winning.
Yeah. See, but that's the thing. They're gonna have to freaking get out the fucking spikes, you know, and the hammers, because they're not gonna stop us otherwise, right? It's like, sure, if you can actually crucify us, you know, bring back you know, it's like, no, they can't do that.
Here's my thesis then. The solution to AI, and maybe the solution to voting, and maybe the solution to the situation we're all in, is just to hit the gas. Let's outrun them. Yeah. The one thing we can do faster than the powers that be is move as fast as possible and succeed without pacing.
Be willing to know who's there beside you in a foxhole, because I didn't realize that.
I'm sure there are a lot of weird implications.
Had I been in a foxhole in World War II with Joe Lubin, I'd be dead right now, right? Because they stabbed us in the back, and we know they did now.
So
and yet we're all forced. It's like, we have to be polite though. It's metallic. I mean, come on. You know, it's like we don't really have.
They got him to eat the bugs, man.
Yeah, well,
and it was over then.
That's the thing, though. They've made billions helping people decide, convince us to eat bugs, right? And that's the thing.
Should we
the VCs, the reason they came after us was, among other things, probably related to Ethereum, from what I understand. I don't know. But you know, I don't know these things. I've not been in that building. The other side of it is, I don't know. I guess it's an interesting thing, because they paid off people They pointed out everybody else, and now they have a monopoly. And I don't think it'll last because of that, because things built on such foundations. And by the way, I was a member of the very first DAO, right? So related to all this, and I embarked on that like, oh my God!
I haven't learned about it yet.
Right, I was just like, it was amazing, and it's like I love this, and I can see they're just kind of clunky, and they maybe don't know what they're doing, but I'm gonna put, I think I put in like $400 worth of Ethereum. I got some DAO, and I can't remember how many days or weeks it lasted. It didn't last very long, but I remember waking up one morning, and I do believe it was a weekend morning, and I got some notifications. I look at him and was like, what? That somebody was emptying the accounts. And I just smiled, and it's like I didn't put in millions or tens of thousands of dollars that would have scared the crap, but I would have. Yeah, that would have been stupid, right?
Well, I mean,
I put in $400.
Because I never put in more than you can
I
afford
can
to lose.
smile.
In fact, that's the great definition for never invest more than you can afford to lose, right?
Yes.
If you
Right,
can't
and it was,
laugh as it goes away,
yes,
you put in too much.
Exactly. And that was the beauty, because that was a brilliant.
You should hit the current
beautiful
events button
experiment.
though.
It was worth the story that I have, and it's worth the example, frankly, because the other thing it led to, and you have to think about this, that so far the most the most important factor in Ethereum governance has been directly related to a DAO. And it was the first DAO that showed how important it was to prove whether people would stand by their word. And guess what? They don't. And when you find somebody who stands by their word, it's not going to be about me. You can trust me. If I tell you something, the worst it would be is if I'm mistaken. And so you can say, does Joe know about blockchain? Like, okay, Joe knows about blockchain. Joe told me this. Is Joe lying? It's like, Joe doesn't do that, right? Joe's going to tell you what he says, even if it's, that I'm going to frame it. And the reason is I'm making it in my interest. I'm positioning myself against that reality, because in the end, everything's going to be back there, right? And in the worst case, I'll at least be able to say, see, I was right. You should just believe me next time, dumbass. And it'll happen, right? And it works. People like that. So anyway, I just think that that's an interesting thing, because whatever. Anyway, did we get the last question? We still have time. We've gone way over on the question.
We have, man.
Kind of good.
We got to hit that
okay.
events button.
All right. I am for I am again. Election integrity is critical. This means a secure login to vote and vote only once. It also means private, so I can see my vote was counted. See, this is important. And how it was counted, by the way. And for others not to know how I voted. Also, it would also require scaling on election day. And also, as mentioned before, anybody would have to be able to count the vote. You can't leave it to some appointed official, and sometimes elected, maybe, because they haven't even, they're just listening to their cronies. So question, how would a log into a blockchain app at work that would be secure, private, would scale, and allow for proper reporting? There's also how the umbrella promise would work. So
state channels.
Okay, you go ahead, Greg.
State channels. That's my answer.
State channels. Okay. You want to explain how?
You have to do some kind of zero knowledge roll up if you wanted it to work. Logging in would initiate a session, maybe at the polling place, and all of the transactions flowing through it would be stacked into that one roll up.
Okay, that's good. Okay, that's a good first. Okay, all right. What do you think, Jonathan?
I like the idea of ZK rollups. I do think that it can still be manipulated. I think anything that's digital currently has the ability to be manipulated. It's only a matter of time. I don't trust people in the current environment to build out that secure voting apparatus that scales to a national level yet. Yep. I think that we have a lot of chess pieces that we have to take off the board first before we can get focused on that. That's why I think the paradox is to make technological advances into our civic duties, we almost have to backtrack and simplify things to ensure the people have the representation that they voted for. Because right now, as it
Yep.
stands, it's far too prevalent that they do not. And
Yep.
that has to be rectified first.
First count, hand count would probably be the best way to go, wouldn't it?
I wouldn't trust that you know they're going to fill that with their counters. I don't think you gain anything from. That's why I think the one thing blockchain gives you is the ability to provide transparency. And yes, I wouldn't trust the people that I wouldn't trust Consensus to do it. I wouldn't trust IBM to do it. I would want whoever does it to essentially make it so that they don't have a hand in it, that the individual voters can actually verify their own votes. And you can even track how many did. So you can even, that's an audit point. It's like, okay, we had all these votes, but for some reason, 30% of the voters didn't actually check their own votes. There's a question, right? The process should be, we want you to vote. We want you, the second point in voting is to check it and validate from the same key. Yes, I did. That is how I voted, right? So that the machine didn't just swap the vote. And the fact that potentially if that happened, you would have the opportunity to let's say the machine was hacked. You would say, I didn't vote that way, which is on record directly. And I can now set the votes as I wish, right? I mean, it could go to all crazy levels.
I would go full Butlerian jihad, air-gapped, no integrated circuits, no levers, no nothing, election sites until we got it squared away.
Yeah, and then the ability to audit after the fact thoroughly by third parties or by, the losing side. I think that should come paramount to every election. There should not be this, like, I get the protection of privacy. One of my biggest things that I talk about is the compromise of our PII and our voter data intentionally by a lot of these organizations. So I understand how paramount that is. But it doesn't supersede the integrity of the most important thing that we as Americans do, and that's select the people that we consent to govern us, that shape national policy and international policy, and they even set kind of the gauge on which direction all this technology that we're discussing today goes, because they get to set the boundaries. And I want those people to be in line with me, because I feel like I'm in line with most normal, reasonable people. Men can't get pregnant. Natural immunity exists. Like, COVID was created in a lab, like that stuff. I hope if your listeners are watching this, they're not losing their shit right now when I say that. But like, I
don't think our listeners will. Our intentional listeners, the community listeners, other listeners, I'm sure YouTube's the one that's going to be throwing a fit right now.
Yeah. Oh, come on. And they really are. Whoever's seriously upset about that, come on. Just read something about it. Just read about it.
Yeah. So definitely a private, and that's why I don't imagine or expect a perfect system, but I do wish for one, and that's where you have to have a very good ability to separate yet prove ownership of an identity. That is, you might even have a point where the keys don't exist for that identity anymore, so we can't prove who it was, but we can prove that this person did go to whatever state agency and did show their ID. They were face masked, whatever was required at that time, and that they did vote when they were eligible to vote, right? That type of stuff is important. And at least you would get all types of analytical tools to track down if there was some fraud involved, organized fraud involved, where there, 5% of the total vote is fraudulent by some organization. You want to be able to at least find analytics, have proof, evidence. You would think they would want this, right? You would think all of these people should want this. And in the case that, yes, it's still possible, people could still do something to circumvent the types of protections that are in place. It has to be a state employee, whatever, things like that. But the thing is, it becomes radically more expensive then, right?
It could go
yes, they
silly
could
the
do
other
it, but
direction
it's
too.
way expensive.
We
What's
could go
that?
silly the other direction and make it no longer a quantitative measure of who wins, so much as it is a battle of wills to who can stuff the ballot box the fastest.
Well, yeah, that is true. I mean, it's like essentially,
Make it a Hunger Games type election.
Yeah, just like whoever's got the best script.
Well, and that's the thing too. The most passionate is like, Greg. Yes, we're hoping that Canada Day wins.
Teasing. That was a joke.
No, but you think about it. It could be that Greg. How many did you? It's like I did 10,000. It's like, oh man, I need to up my game, right? That type of thing. It could be that, and it could be.
Then we'll be able to print enough I voted stickers.
Yep. Okay, so that's great, and for me, it is. And this gets to very technical points, but keep air based, so it's provable. So I can reassert what I did, but you have and they're very hard to explain. I will tell you, but there are very complex ways, complex to describe, but very simple in implementation on how to tie an account to multiple keys. So multiple devices. You don't. For instance, if you went to the crypto world today, they would tell you, "Oh, well, we just need to issue some Trezor or Ledger type function." It'd probably be a Ledger because they would want backdoors, right? I'm joking. That you would essentially though require grandma to figure out how to use this. It's like that's never going to happen. You have to make it very simple, but very.
Don't screenshot the words, clean. Grandma.
Yes. She types. She tweets them out. It's like, anyway. But still, it's like that type of thing. If you tie it to an account and you reduce a lot of the issues you have with usability, and we've done a bunch of that stuff. It's very important for this in particular. This subject. The other side of it is you have to have kiosks, and you have to have the ability to accept paper as well, and to have you think about it with paper. You would want it to be somehow attachable again to a declared identity, but so you have all the credentials, but where snapshots in process through the whole, until it gets actually counted would be on chain, right? So they're very, reasonable ways to do it. We've worked this problem all the way down to villages in Africa. We had a proposal in for a candidate in a country in Africa that didn't win. And it's kind of sad, and I guess I should have predicted he wouldn't win, but he wanted to fix it. There were they have all types of issues with resources being stolen and everything else, and they have problems with elections, as you can imagine. So we had an entire category on how you could get an election on chain to the last mile, right? It's like, where it was a village where they didn't have driver's licenses, right? But you'd have to have some form of a structure where, the village elder is
a good
the
example,
trusted authority, right?
Of how you need these base systems to be stable before you can do these kinds of things.
Yes. And right now, you're right. I mean, what we have right now probably requires a lot more rope than silicon. Right, I don't think that it's not a problem with the machines.
I almost think
people
a lot
running
of this, what's
stuff.
on the ballot to begin with. We are right now electing people when we probably have to be electing processes.
That's a good point. I think we should revamp. I think we should go back, wipe, no violence. Just wipe all the laws, start over from scratch. Start building out. That's what should happen. I a long
shouldn't
time.
The machines that you use be on the ballot?
Yes, exactly. It's like we need a structural change. What we're doing right now is never gonna get anywhere. So anyway, so we only have 15 minutes left. We would normally do. You want to do a real quick couple of? Hey, do we do a break?
Time.
Let's do a break right before current events, right? Run a break. We'll be right back.
America's not the government, people. The America is you. It is the grand fucking canyon, the Rocky Mountains, the deserts of the Southwest, the Pacific fucking Ocean, the Atlantic fucking Ocean. It is the grandest continent. And what the fuck have you people done? You have turned yourself into sheep, every goddamn one of you.
I love McAfee. So I think we lost Jonathan. He probably had to leave because it was short notice and stuff. So we only have
And
a
I
few
do have to
minutes.
hop early today too.
Yeah.
Because I
Awesome.
have a call right after this.
Okay, so real quick, I think the one thing I want to cover is Elon Musk comments about the advertisers. It's amazing.
Can we just
Right.
play it? Like, I want to hear it.
Oh, do you have it up? Yes. Okay, let's do it. Hopefully, we have audio. We have no audio. No. I think if you I think you have to share the tab. If you can share the tab, we'll try. We'll try because it is a beautiful
Scathing.
A beautiful thing. Yeah. So we'll try to do it. Because and by the way, the effect of this, I think, is that he's broken their system. The rule book was very they time tested. They've done it over and over and over again. I think he broke it.
Here we go.
Or, if you will, this had been said online. There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger
I hope
today.
they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck yourself. But go. Is that clear?
It's
I hope
clear.
it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
Well, let me ask you then.
All right. So
That's how I feel.
because that's the thing. Once he takes that away from him, they have nothing else they can come after him for, right? Once he says that he's not going to advertise or doesn't care if they advertise or not, they have nothing they can use to control him with. Hopefully,
What he said after that was great too. He said, "Let them kill the company. Let the world react."
well, it's great. It's a private company, right? They're going to get more advertising. I would expect from him doing that, and he exposes Disney. Disney literally pulls advertising because he's talking about pedophiles. It's like, that's interesting, isn't it? It's like, why does Disney care about Pizzagate and pedophiles?
Dude, I
Oh,
will
they care that
cancel
much
2
about it.
streaming services just to pay a $50 fucking fee to him to keep that company online. I swear to God.
Man. So anyway, I just think it's very interesting. It's amazing. I think he broke it. He broke them. I don't know how they're going to react to it. But I don't know. It's a positive thing. Elon Musk is not perfect for sure, but and sometimes he's hard to predict, which is great. But I'm very impressed with this. I didn't expect this, so it's like, wow. Anyway, that's amazing.
I think it's come after a little bit of maybe him trying to dance the dance with them, and he realized it was a losing battle.
Yeah, it's usually how it works, I guess, right?
What do you think? What do you think, John?
Yeah, I think it's going to backfire in a massive way. Washington Post was right there alongside Disney with, pulling advertisement immediately just because he tweeted about Pizzagate. And, we've seen 140 requested buyouts from Washington Post in the last week, with the stipulation that if you reject the buyout, you will be laid off later. So it's like, yeah, they're like, people are waking up, and thankfully, regardless of what you think about Elon, he's a hell of a lot better than the alternative that we had in there previously. And at least we have a fighting chance now. And he is the only person that has the resources and the people around him that could stand in the doorway and make meaningful change and write this, steer the rudder correctly for us. And we need him. We need him to be everything we need him to be. I'll tell you.
And let's say I think he won either way, right? Because like if they effectively kill X, they're not going to be pointing. Nobody's going to be pointing the finger at Elon, right?
Right.
If
If
they don't effectively kill X, then he breaks them.
Yeah. Well, and
You've
that's why they went spastic when he was trying to take it over. They had a reason for being so crazy about that. It wasn't like, it's a billionaire. It's like somebody's. It was
He's a
worse
product
than if
of
Trump
America,
would have
right?
tried to buy
He's
Twitter.
the kind of American that people actually still admire.
And
Yeah.
they tried to sabotage his deal by getting him
Yep.
to go bring Sam Bankman-Fried into the Twitter deal right before FTX completely
imagine?
collapses.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. That's
Can you
nuts, isn't it?
imagine?
Well, and
Who
they had.
got
I mean,
that
it's,
shit?
there was.
What if it was SBF running Twitter?
Man. Wow. It's just there was so much stuff with that in a normal case wouldn't add up, and it became entertaining as well. But it's just the fact
Guessing
that
Gensler wouldn't be getting ratioed every time he talked.
well, and you think about it, it's if you were to step back and pull all politics from this and say, okay, somebody from the 50s, and you describe the players, you don't describe the what people think about them, but you describe who they think, oh, this Elon Musk guy must be kind of like Howard Hughes, right? This is like he's probably a good guy, right? He's probably
Hey guys,
amazing.
I hate to cut
Okay,
early, but
no
I
worries.
gotta jump. I got a call in like 2 minutes. So
No worries.
it was great talking
next
to
week.
you, Jonathan.
Likewise,
Always a pleasure,
Greg.
Joe. We'll catch y'all later.
See you, man. So anyway, they would like he'd be a hero, but then you pull in all this, and this is clown world. Everything is so bizarre, backwards, messed up. It's, in the end, it's very depressing a lot of times, but I think in the end, somewhat, I find, and I think a lot of people do enjoy seeing how ridiculous it's getting, because at some point it's going to break it, because it's off the charts, crazy stuff happening. So anyway,
it helps to wake everybody up, and it also
Yes.
adds to the
Yes.
psychological shame
Yep.
aspect that's necessary, because it's not enough. Like with people like this, when you're fighting a psychological war and an informational war simultaneously, it's not enough to just be right. For people like this who are communists, like hostile takeover situation, there's a shame aspect that you can't just be right to beat them. You have to demoralize them, and that serves to further wake people up, and just it's kind of the self-fulfilling prophecy, momentum thing at that point.
Yep. I think that's it. That's very true. The demoralization thing and doublethink used for demoralization. There's some crazy stuff that I had never really understood until the past few years. When people were describing real events and then talking about why they're doing that. They're not just doing that to be cruel or to make somebody. They're doing it for control, and it's crazy. It's like, holy crap! You see that and you can't unsee it. It's bizarre. So anyway, thanks a bunch. Thank you for coming on, especially on such short notice. Everybody should thank Jonathan. It was amazing with this subject to have you on. So thanks a bunch. And in closing, make sure everybody goes into the lair, WBRT on Den, to ask questions for next week. The theme next week is unknown. So go vote. So the theme next week is unknown. I don't know what that means. So, but either way, go ask some blockchain questions about unknown things. And then on this, if possible, if you could share the episode, let people know that it's there. It will run. I'd have to ask. I can't remember how many times we run it. We run it a few times during the week, live broadcast through Twitter, LinkedIn again, I think, so that it pops up on people's feeds. So that'll run, it'll rerun a few times this week. But make sure you share it, and everybody will get more lot. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Also, Jonathan, what do you have going on? We have a couple of minutes left still. So, what do you have going on this week that people should be watching? I saw a list of things that are happening, and I'm like, I'm not going to be able to even remember all these things to watch. So, what do you think?
Same thing that we're doing every day. So we're up against massive corruption, the worst racketeering operation that's ever been perpetuated in the United States. And, it bleeds over into so many of these elected officials and these bad actors that are causing the problems that we were just discussing, about what's the solution. And we have a finite window. We have 2024 primaries right around the corner, 7 months away from today. And so we have to get real measurable action and prosecutions and plea deals and things have to be fleshed out now. And so that's why if you follow my Twitter account here and there, and it just seems like all of a sudden it's like a blitzkrieg of information, it's basically breadcrumbs for everybody. There's no way that I'm going to be able to, or that the people that I work with are going to be able to handle everything in every state for everybody. But it's designed to get people in those states to wake up and say, look, yeah, we got to go address this. Somebody has to address this. And I've been thankful that Twitter has been a fantastic tool for that. And it's allowed me to connect with people like you, Joe, and I appreciate you having me on here today to shoot the shit and discuss election integrity and hear about what you guys are working for and what you're about. So I appreciate it.
Right on. Right on. No, yeah. Thanks again for coming. I was like, it was my fault that you got such short notice, but yeah, I tend to do that. I don't realize what the next episode is until right before it goes on. So I should be more open or cognizant to go back and check that stuff. So anyway, yeah, thanks for being on. And if anybody's interested in this topic in particular, definitely go follow Jonathan on Twitter, on X, and definitely if you can, go and read. There are 2 or 3 blog postings on dragonchain.com. I think it's either /blog or /news. I can't remember in all truth, but if you go in there, there are a few of them related to election integrity and how some of the technologies can be applied. And we have a number of things that we've done over the years, trying to at least document what was possible. So whenever an opportunity was there. So if you could grab those, and if you have any opportunity where someone might say, hey, that's impossible, or why would you ever do that? I mean, it's a good opportunity then. I mean, there's a guy on LinkedIn that made in fact, I posted one of his on here, one of his comments. So he had some questions there. I'm like, I'm going to at least feed him those links and Jonathan's links so he can go and check that stuff out, because people who are interested in that, you never know if they're tied to somebody who might actually be able to make a decision. Right. And in that case, it might not even be perfect. It might not even be exactly what we all want, but at least it'll be some opportunity to improve, hopefully. So anyway, that's the way to get stuff done, hopefully. The other side of it, and maybe I'm going to tell you this, won't talk any depth in it. I was hopeful, and I've never been in front of anybody that might know somebody that this would make sense for. We literally should set up a DAO which can get funding from people who are like-minded to go and essentially push, market for, or potentially build solutions for, starting with smaller jurisdictions, things like that. But then over time, you get a DAO that has a lot of power that is like, oh, it can actually make or break my life as a candidate in this district. Of course, I'm going to be for it, right? Crap like that could really be possible and legal. And the DAO, especially the way that we work with DAOs, you could literally make it able. And I'm not an election lawyer or anything like that, right? But I know that there are some regulations around political action committees and what form and how they take their money and how they use their money. That you could literally set up a DAO to follow those rules, literally, yet have the people who built the DAO who have put money in have a say, right? And it'd be itself a beautiful proof of concept for some of these other election purposes, but it would be literally driving those. So I'd love to do that, but I have no idea who in the world to talk to. I tried to get in touch. I had a contact who knew Steve Bannon, and I'm like, okay, but I couldn't get cut through and get a conversation. So it's like, anyway, anything open to conversations like that, I'm game. Even if you want to come and say, hey, Joe, I want you to talk to this person, but don't cover this, right? I'm like, okay, I'm good at that type of thing. So anyway, so any last words, Jonathan? Sorry, I talked too long there.
No, I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate everything you guys are doing. I appreciate you letting me have a platform to come on and talk about some of the work that we're doing. And it's incredibly important because it's going to be the people like you and me, not the high profile millions of followers and fans and whatnot
Right.
that are going to end up saving the country and directing us on the path that the founders and the framers would have wanted, because it's us that all these terrible policies and unsafe and unsecure elections take from us.